TGCRequiem here. I'm doing something a little different here. I have a buddy from the local game store who was looking to get into Magic Online after some discussions we had had a couple Fridays ago, and he was indicating to me that just again, because it's kind of new, he wasn't quite sure how to do this or that, and it just gave me the idea of maybe putting out a video on how to use MTGO. So if you're looking to use MTGO, I'm hoping to cover kind of most stuff at a high level and some of the more important things like how to build a deck, how to initiate matches, and what the different methods of playing are within Magic the Gathering Online. So if you have anybody who is looking to get into Magic Online and needs kind of like a tutorial, this is kind of what that is designed for. I'll have some links to different spots in the video at the in the description that just outline where you can kind of skip ahead to certain parts if you maybe watched the video before and don't want to sit through the whole thing to find out how to start a match or how to build a deck, etc. So first of all, if you want to download Magic, I just googled download MTGO, and it gives you the link here, magic.wizards.com/en/content/download. Brings you to a page where you can download it for Windows, and I would assume you know how to download and install. That's about as far as I'm going here. Once you've installed the program, and I believe it does require you, it may not anymore, but it used to require a $10 one-time sign-up fee that comes with a bunch of cards, but the cards it comes with, I don't want to say they're not usable, but a lot of you're only going to use a handful of them. There's not like a huge selection. You're not loading in with all of the cards that that you need to build a deck for your different formats, etc. Once you've logged into Magic the Gathering Online, you have kind of a list of menu options across the top, which really help you drive around where you're trying to get to. They have an announcements page that tells you about a bunch of things that are going on. Featured league. I think sometimes if you're in an active league, the active league displays up in the featured league. Also an outline of the time of upcoming tournaments. If you're really into the competitive tournament scene, you get to it basically tells you when all the next tournaments are going to be starting based on your format. You can easily see if you want to play Vintage or Legacy, Pauper, etc. Down along the bottom on the home screen, you have a list of buddies. You can actually just come down, click Add Buddy, and type in a buddy's name, and then add that buddy. And essentially, it'll go out and look for that buddy. And so long as they do the same thing for you, then that buddy should show up in your list. There's another thing which is for a clan, and we had named a clan Team Rabble Maz a while back, but it's just a way to basically be able to have group chats of sorts where you can invite people to your clan, and basically it's just a way to kind of organize playing with people you're playing with more on the regular. Collection is where you go to look at your cards and your deck list. So the way this view is kind of laid out is there are binders. There's kind of like sections and then binders. So for each section, there's a section for the different formats you might have a deck for, and when you click into that section, it'll display the decks that you have. Binders are just kind of collections of cards, and then you can add decks. The decks have the deck box icon. To add a new deck for a format, you would just right click on that tab and click Add New Deck, or you can, as you may have already noticed, if you've clicked onto that tab, click onto the Add Deck box. When it comes up, you get the option to choose what deck box you want. There are probably ways to get more deck boxes than the default ones that are displayed here. And then you can just name your deck My Standard Deck, and then choose the format. And based on the format you choose, it's going to sort it into one of these tabs on the left hand side. Once you have created your deck, what you can do is start to add cards. So You can just kind of go through and look for the cards and scroll through them, but if you have a pretty large collection, then that's a little hard. One thing you really probably want to do is make sure that you have your quantities set up. So if you want to see every card that's ever been made, you can set this quantity from 0 to 20 plus. But if you only want to see cards you own, you set it to have a minimum of 1, and then up to 20 is fine. And just in case you have more than 4 cards. You can then search for cards by searching keywords. So if I know that I'm looking for Aether Hub, I can just type in Aether Hub, and it's going to find, and then click enter or search, it's going to find Aether Hub. If I want to add Aether Hub to my deck, I can either drag it down, I can double click, or I can right click and add to the deck. Similarly, I can do the same thing for the sideboard. Though for the sideboard, double clicking won't work. You'd have to right click it, move to sideboard, and from up top you can add to the sideboard. Now the really nice thing here is you don't have to search just on card names. So say I want to search on island. Every card that contains the word island in the text is going to pop up. And so what I can do is come in here and then say, okay, well, here's my islands. Well, here's Hinterland Harbor, which comes in untapped if you control a forest or an island. Underground Sea is technically an island swamp. Now, again, this is a standard deck. It does not default to only showing you standard cards. If you wanted to filter down the selections to just standard cards, you can click standard and research. And now I'm only seeing islands that are relevant for standard. Similarly, I could expand that to see islands in modern. And then I'm getting all the cards that contain the word island in modern. If you have multiple cards, like for example, I want to add 4 watery graves, I can add 4 by right-clicking and adding 4. Now what you see here with these lines around the outside, that indicates that this is illegal for this deck. Because the format is standard, watery grave is not legal in standard, so this is a warning. This warning right here is telling you that the deck is too small, and it also contains illegal cards. So get a little bit of a warning there, which is pretty nice. So you can filter on quite a few things to find cards you want. Format, specifically set, you can choose to look for just certain colors or colorless. You can search on types like creature, artifact, etc. I'm going to pull this down so we can get a little bit more screen space up here. I'm working on a laptop, so if I want to see just artifacts and creatures that contain island in standard, actually I think we're on modern now, so we see Inkwell Leviathan and Spire Golem. So affinity for islands and Inkwell Island Walk. So again, just kind of showing you how that all works. If you want to get back to all your cards, you can click Reset All Filters. It'll clear it and get you back to everything. You can also do searches on subtypes, which would be like the type of creature, things like that. You can search for specific CMCs, so maybe you're playing and you're looking for creatures that are going to be good with collected companies, so you could look for CMC as 3 or less. Power and toughness, again, gives you the ability to filter on those. And rarity, so you can search for cards of special rarities. Special being typically like promo cards, and so if you were to do promos, it's going to show you, all the promo cards you've gotten. And promos can be collected in a variety of ways. We'll get more to that in a minute. So this is kind of just at a high level how you can search for cards and add them to your deck. The other thing you can do is once you've created a deck, say you want to tweak that deck, but you don't want to lose the deck you currently have. So maybe I have a let's just say Shadow Jund, right? So Death Shadow Jund, and I want to tweak this deck a little bit. I want to add in the new, what's the new card? Claim to Fame, right? So I'm looking to add Claim to Fame. So I do my search, I find Claim. What I can do if I don't want to manipulate this deck is I can right click on this deck and open a new copy of this deck. If I want to rename the deck, I can just go to Properties, and from Properties I can edit the name, etc. The other thing you can do from edit is you can draw sample hands, you can take mulligans, and so you can get a feel for how the deck is going to draw. You can also go to analysis, which I don't think analysis really does anything except for give you a mana curve. So again, if I want to create a copy though, I can open a new copy of this deck. It will then create a copy right below it with the number 2, where you can then properties and call it whatever you want. In this case, I'm going to call it Shadow Jund Claim. And then I add in my claim to fame and pull out whatever I want to pull out, and then we're good to go. In this case, I am going to note 62 cards, fine. Sideboard, note how we get a warning if our sideboard exceeds 15. So again, just kind of helps to make sure your deck is in line. So since it's out of line though, it drives it down here to the bottom as an illegal deck, and so we're going to just delete it from here. We don't want this illegal deck. The other binder you probably care about is your trade binder. So freeform is just for decks that don't, you can think of it like a kitchen table deck. It's not like one of the standard constructed formats. Trade binders, you can come in here and create trade binders for trading. Typically for trade is, the big one. Full trade list, I think, has everything. But you can bring in your cards that you want to trade. And you can create as many folders as you want. So what I do is sometimes my buddies and I will trade cards back and forth to each other because they want to play this deck or that deck, and we don't all want to buy everything. So I'll create folders for the cards that I borrowed from different friends, and that way I can quickly, when I want to trade with them, just select that trade binder. So if you wanted to trade with somebody, you can actually just right click on them, and I don't know if this is going to allow me with nobody on, but you can click on trade, and when you go to trade, it'll ask you what trade binder you want to use. And so you can choose which trade binder you want, and that way you're just showing them the cards that you want them to be able to have access to. And since in this case with Kevin, I had traded Kevin, I'm going to only display the cards I want Kevin to be able to get, which are his cards. When I'm trading with a bot, which is one of the ways you can get cards, I would use my for trade binder because that's typically where I keep all the cards I'm looking to get rid of, and or where I have my tickets that I want to use for trading. Tickets are essentially like the currency of Magic the Gathering Online or Magic Online. If you go to other products, there's a variety of things you can get. Event tickets are things you can buy. They're roughly $1. And what you can do is you can use these to enter events and play in events. And so this is again in your collection under this all other products tab. And so sometimes you can use those to enter events, but you can also use them to trade for cards. And so if you're trading with a bot, what you can do is basically add the event tickets to your trade binder. And then by having them in your trade binder, you can actually trade for cards directly that way. I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of the other things. Basically, these avatars just are ways of potentially seeing that icon when you play a game of Magic, for your name instead of another place. Play points are a thing you can use to sign or win events, basically. I actually just traded all my treasure chests away, but treasure chests are another thing that you can use. So play points and treasure chests are generally your rewards. You can also win booster packs of whatever the current set is, and basically you can use the play points to get into new events. So you initially may use event tickets to get into an event, but if you accumulate play points, you can use those play points instead of using the event tickets and save the event tickets for other things. Again, when you get the prizes such as treasure chests, you can use those treasure chests, trade them in for event tickets. Say you have a deck that you no longer want to play and you want to play a different deck, you can trade the cards from that deck in for event tickets and then use those event tickets to go get other cards. It's a lot easier, smoother than in paper where you got to find somebody who has the cards you're looking for. There's never a problem finding cards online or the ability to trade for cards online. Now, to actually trade for cards online, what you would probably want to do is go to MTGO wikiprice.com. Once you go to MTGO wikiprice.com, you're going to be able to search for a card. So say I want to trade for Brainstorm. So there's a whole list of brainstorms. We're going to pick one, Ice Age here. And when it comes up, what you're going to see is a list of people who are selling and how much they're selling them for. So here we see MTGO Card Market has 2 available at roughly 6.5 cents, right? 6.6 cents. That's not our technical price, that's how many event tickets. Now you have to trade in full event tickets. So if I went to trade for this, I would essentially copy that trader's name, go to the trade tab, do a search on that trader's name, double click, choose the 4-trade binder that has my tickets, and the trade binder is going to come up. Now it's remembering the last time I searched for Life from the Loam, which we're not looking for here. We're looking for those brainstorms. So if I look for brainstorm here, type it in and hit search, I'm going to see all the brainstorms. Now note that the Ice Age version is not what came up. When you look up brainstorm, I chose Ice Age, but as you note, the set is off to the right here. It's showing me every version out there. So if I wanted Ice Age, I'd need to specifically look for a vendor selling Ice Age, or I can say only Ice Age. So by default it says, oh, you're looking for Brainstorm. Our assumption is you don't care which version. But if I only want Ice Age, I have to change it to only Ice Age. And in this case, there actually aren't any Ice Age available. But regardless, what we're going to do, we want to get these 2 brainstorms. One thing I will note is you can see there's a credit column here, and it shows that I have 0.064 credit. So what happened is I had traded previously with this vendor, and so I have that much credit left, which is just under what I'd need, which means I would still have to trade a full ticket. So we're going to slide this over. What we can do here is if we take one of these new items and throw the brainstorm in, we'll see the trade bot is saying, okay, well, here's how much it is. Now this is probably a different version than the one that we were looking at. We were looking for Vintage Masters, which I'm actually not sure which version was Vintage Masters, but if I want to see a bigger version of the card, I can click on my little mouse wheel and it'll show me, and this is Vintage Masters right there. I can see the set icon right there. So if we get rid of this brainstorm, add that brainstorm, we're going to see the price over here is now, you've up to 0.64 in credit, you receive brainstorm, oh, that was a foil, that's my mistake, so this is the non-foil. Here we go, 0.66 credit, just like we said. Now, that is 6 cents worth of a ticket, but we have to pay a minimum of 1 event ticket. Now, if I had had enough credit to pay for the card, I wouldn't have to have an event ticket, but I would have to use that event ticket. Now, once I use that event ticket, I'm going to have now almost a full $1 worth of credit at this bot chain. And so what we can do is in the future, we can trade with these bot chains, and even though I spent a full $1 to get 6 or 12 cents worth of cards, I still have 90 cents worth of card purchase power available through that bot later. So we're not actually going to do the trade here right now. The same process works for selling. If I wanted to sell, I could find whichever vendor is buying. So actually what we can see here is Ice Age. Note how there were no Ice Ages available for sell or to be sold. So if we were looking for all buyers for Ice Age, we could come in here, for all sets, choose only Ice Age, and anybody who's buying Ice Age will list the price of what they are buying Ice Age 4. So these are almost going for a full tick, or almost a full dollar, 89 cents a piece. And so if you had one, you could go to that vendor, in this case MTGO Card Market 2, which is I think the vendor we're currently looking at. And what we can do is type sell. And if we type sell, they're going to look at our binder and see if there's anything they want. In this case, I don't know if you saw it pop across the screen, but they said, I am sorry, I could not find any card of interest at this time. If I had had cards in my trade binder that they wanted, they would take those cards, put them into their half of the screen, and then at that point, to get the tickets that we need to associate for that, we would go to other products and say we were trading it for a total of 2 tickets. We could go down, find the event tickets, or click tickets to, thin the list out, and then add the tickets we want. As it is, since we're adding 2 tickets for trade, they're going to add 2 tickets to offset that. And then a third because, again, we don't have enough credit to cover the brainstorm. And then once you're done with the trade, you would just click submit. You get a confirmation screen, and then a pay window would load up telling you that the product was there, now yours, at which point you could go back to your collection, do a search on brainstorm, and you would see the brainstorms that you have now traded for. In this case, I do have the Ice Age ones myself, but I did not trade for the one in the example there, which is why you don't see that VMA version there. Now, if you're looking to buy a deck outright because you don't have a deck yet, what you can do is go to a number of vendors. I don't want to necessarily play favorites. There's 3 that I'm aware of that are pretty good. MTGO Traders, Card Hoarder, and GoatBots. And basically you can buy these with cash or credit, PayPal. Just basically build a list of cards that you want. So in this case, say we're looking for Brainstorm. We find whichever version of Brainstorm we want. As we can see, there's varying prices based on what you want. We're just going to click Brainstorm, and then we can go find the one for the price point we want. Say, okay, I'd like 4 of these, add to cart. And just like any online store, eventually you can just check out. And when you go to check out, they'll ask you for your screen name, and then they'll initiate a trade with you, and they would essentially, very similar to how I started to say trade this MTGO friend, what you can do is they'll essentially initiate a trade to you, and then you just say trade me, and then they'll trade all the cards to you. You do have to actually grab the cards and put them in your binder and take them, but again, that's how you get the cards. So again, once you get the cards, then you can build your decks by going to whichever format you want and build and tweak your decks, etc., etc. Now, when you're ready to play, once your deck is done, you can go to the play lobby. In the play lobby, there's quite a few things you can do. The standard to kind of play for free is constructed open play. Under constructed open play, there are differing skill levels. So if you're playing for the first time, you can go to just starting out. And so people who are just starting out here, the competition's not as hard, maybe the decks aren't quite as good. People are just learning the game. And this is where you can start. Just for fun, I don't know that anybody plays in just for fun. Oh, it looks like there are. So just for fun would be, probably people who are typically playing more, I don't know how to call this, more like janky decks, I'll say. And that's not necessarily to say that people aren't playing, more competitive decks, but just for fun is the, ideally for people who are trying to play non-competitive decks, more kitchen table style. You can see there's the formats here. Getting serious is kind of like the first step into competitive, and then tournament practice is, where most of your tournament practice is going to occur when you're playing for free. I would note that tournament practice under constructed open play is, I don't want to say not that competitive, but there's a significant jump from tournament practice to moving to constructed tournaments in my experience. Once you've chosen whichever skill level you're on, you can go down and find your deck. Now you can first filter by format, so I could say I only want to see Modern, and it's going to filter down to just Modern. And if I go to my decks, now I can only choose from my Modern decks. Note that I cannot select decks that are illegal, so these decks had some sort of construction issue when I tried to, or when I was over there, so maybe I'm missing a card or no longer own a card that's a part of that deck, and therefore I cannot play with those decks. But any of my decks that are here, I can. If you don't choose a format, you can just scroll through all of your formats and find the differing decks and differing formats that you want to play, and then basically once you've selected your deck, you can click play. When you click play, it's going to load you into a window where it's either going to throw you up against the next open match. So right now if I clicked play, I would have hit that Is It Mage. If there's no games awaiting play, if I click play here, it'll sit me and have me start waiting until somebody else becomes available, and then that hippie 133 player would have joined my game. And then we just play Magic, basically. What I'm going to do here real quick is just go down to players. And in players, I'm going to choose Solitaire. And what this will allow me to do is click play, but not have to play against another person. And so if I want to practice my deck and just kind of goof around, so to speak, and I'm going to kind of collapse this a little bit. This is where I can come in. And basically what this allows me to do is just kind of take turn after turn and goldfish my deck, if you will. So I could look at my hand, decide if I want to keep, maybe I don't want this hand, so I mulligan. This one looks good. I can now, so you get message text here on the left, that right above your name, that tells you what's going on. So here it says scry 1. This was because I mulliganed and then kept. For each card, click to put it on the top or bottom of your library. When it says click, you would right click, and then you get the option, do I want to put this card on the top or bottom of my library? And so in this case, I would choose to put it on top of my library, play my land for turn, and this is just left clicking basically. If you right click, you get the option to choose which thing you want to do. I don't think this is the best deck to kind of explain this, but there are some cards that have multiple options, and so if you were to just click on it, it's going to just play the mountain. But if I were to right click on it, it's going to give me the option to do the same thing, where if I had multiple options, so it's like a modal card, I could choose which of those two options I wanted to do here. So if I wanted to lightning bolt my opponent, I could click lightning bolt, and then I would target my opponent. Now I don't have opponent in this solitaire mode, so I would target myself, and then it's going to make me pay for it. As you can see, pay red, so I would need to tap a red mana source. Right? And so then the spell's cast, my life total goes down, and what you have over here to the right is a game log that tells you essentially everything that occurred. You also have different windows. So this is your graveyard. If you click on it, you can expand it to see all the details, the exile zone, cards that have been revealed. So say you thought seized your opponent and saw their hand, and then what is this? Number of cards and players effects zones. So I don't know that I've ever used that. Maybe that's more common in Commander. Yeah, so then from here, whenever it is ready to move from one phase of the game to the next, you have the option to click OK. And once I click OK, I will move from phase to phase in the game. If I don't want to do that, and I want to make sure that I, say, cast my Lava Spike before I go into combat, I have to cast it now. Now, certainly I can't cast it because right now I don't have the mana. So I'll get to the point of pay red. Well, I can't, so I would cancel. And then a shortcut for cancel is actually just Control-Z. Or actually, that's undo, which we can get to in a second. So there are shortcuts for moving through the screen. So right now I'm using my mouse to click OK to move from one step to the next, untap, upkeep, draw, main. Note that it's only stopping at certain spots. It's only stopping where I have these arrows flagged. And similarly, when you're in a matchup against your opponent, it will only stop where you have the arrows flagged for your opponent. Now if I wanted to have more stops, so normally I would not stop at the damage step, but if I wanted to, I can click this little lock and then choose damage, and you'll note there's now a little white arrow. If I want to make sure I don't accidentally uncheck damage, I can lock this, and then if I click on damage, it won't go away. I don't normally want to stop at the damage step just because it takes time. You have a 25-minute timer in a match on Magic Online, and so what I would do here is just click OK, and in this case it's skipping attack because there was no attack. There were no creatures to trigger attacks for, so it passed. Could have stopped at damage, but again nothing was there. End of combat. And then there's a trigger at the main, so your stop is set at the main. Now the other thing you can do is if you click this little keyboard icon, the keyboard icon gives you a bunch of quick keyboard shortcuts. So you can full text and actions, right click, that's what I was talking about, where you can like right click on a card and see what your options are, the full text. You can click on your mouse wheel to get a blown up version of the card in question, to read the text on it, which is the same as hold to Z. Hold to auto mana, I don't actually use this. These are what I primarily use. F2. So instead of clicking OK here, I can click F2 on my keyboard and it moves to the next step. I can click F4, and F4 will pass until a response is required of me. So if I hit F4 and my opponent kept passing, or wanted to pass, it would stop me at the next stop I have and ask me if I want to do something. You know, assuming I can do something. F6, if I press F6, it's not even going to ask me. I'm basically saying, do your entire turn, and I don't want you to prompt me for stops. You have to kind of play with these to learn. I think as you start, you want to definitely start with F2. You can kind of dip into F4. I would say I use F2 maybe 80% of the time, F4 maybe 20% of the time. I use F6 like less than a percent of the time. F8 is a toggle auto pass. The reason you would use these is, again, you have a 25-minute timer, and the more time you can save by not clicking buttons, the more time you have on the clock to finish your match. F8 is the fastest. It basically skips anything where you don't have mana available or the ability to cast anything, and so it doesn't even ask you. It just auto skips. It's easy to skip stuff you may want to with that, and so I just am hesitant to use it. The other thing is maybe you want to hold priority. So maybe you want to cast, so I just used F2 to move on. Maybe I want to hold priority. So what I'm doing here is I'm playing the Wooded Foothills. I'm going to right click and then pay 1 to sacrifice that fetch land to go find a land. So now I'm going to cast Lava Spike, but I want to cast Lightning Bolt with Lava Spike on the stack. So I have to hold control as I cast Lava Spike. And so it's going to be on the stack, and now I can choose Lightning Bolt, and now Lightning Bolt is on the stack above Lava Spike. Now when your opponent casts a spell, it's automatically going to give you priority, but when you want to maintain your own priority, you have to hold control to do that. And so now the Lightning Bolt is going to resolve first, and then the Lava Spike. And then basically the game just goes back and forth in this manner until somebody wins, and that's the end of the game. There is a chat box here, so you can talk to your opponent if you're so into that. Things like that. Obviously I'm playing against myself, so nothing's going to happen here. And then there's, you know, some other options such as settings, which we're not going to really get into all those details. So we're going to actually close out of this. To set your stops, you can go to the Account tab. And in the Account tab, there is an option called In-Duel Settings. And for in-duel settings, you can choose where you want your stops to occur. I would recommend setting your stops how I have them listed here. So you would not stop at everything. Now, what you can do again in the game, say you want to cast a card like Kolaghan's Command during your opponent's draw step. You can, during the game, check draw before it gets to that step, and then priority will stop there, allowing you to cast it, and then you can uncheck it. You might only do that three turns of a 12-turn game. You don't want it to lose the time of stopping there every time you need to do it. So these are the default settings that I use. I think I pretty much ripped these off of LSV a while back, and I highly recommend them. They work really well. You have the same option for doing it for your multiplayer games. You also have input settings, so if you'd like to, create different hotkeys, then instead of using like F2, F4, F6 like we were talking about, you can set those to like 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever key strokes you would like. Everybody has different preferences. Display and sound settings. If you have a nice, powerful computer, you can animate your foil treatment, which will make this get that little. Hopefully, you can see that rainbowy effect going across. If you want animate summoning sickness, this spins, just makes it clear that the opponent or that particular creature is summoning sick. I turn those off. I'm playing on a little laptop, and so I don't want to push it too hard. Sound effects. Beyond that, there's not a whole lot I would get into here. Buddies and clan chat. This just allows you to kind of set your settings on who you want to talk to and who you want to receive requests from. Game history, you can actually watch replays of your matches, order history, what you bought, account settings, has some private information, promo code history if you've used any promos, and then policy agreements. If you're going to play competitively, you want to come in here and consider checking yes on these. A lot of those promos that I showed earlier in the collection, that I was able to get those promos just by competing in events, right? So I click special. A lot of these are promos that I got for competing in events. Not all of them. Some of them I traded for. But a lot of these are cards that are basically just given to me by Wizards for free for playing in leagues and things like that. All right, so we talked about trades, we talked about account. Let's go to the store real quick. The store is where you can actually buy things. So say you want to buy packs to participate in a draft league. So again, let's say we're going to jump back to Play Lobby for just a moment. So we previously talked about constructed open play and how you can play for free. Well, if you want to play in a constructed tournament, you can go to constructed tournaments, and then you have differing ways you can play. Queues, which are kind of like, a lot of times they're just 1v1, and you play, I don't want to say you wager a ticket, but basically when you go to log into it or you try and start it, you're going to have to spend 2 player points, and when you do that, you're going to ideally win some points from that. And so, it's just a way to maybe test one deck really quickly. You play a lot of, one match queues over and over and over. Scheduled are your bigger events. So these would be like once a weekend they have these challenges. So every weekend they have a legacy challenge, and a bunch of people sign up for it and they play. This one's going to start 8:20 at 11 a.m. and basically they need a minimum of 8 people, and after that, however many people sign up, they're going to play as many rounds as are necessary, and then they're going to have a top 8, and then pretty big prizes are given for these challenges. Leagues are a little more like in between. Scheduled are like, I don't want to call them like a GP, but they're the closest thing you're going to get to like a GP. You might get occasionally like a 9-round tournament out of the scheduled events. Leagues are always 5-round events, and basically you can come in, you can join differing competitive levels. I would say that a friendly league is still probably more competitive than the tournament practice room by quite a bit, and then the competitive leagues are going to be quite a bit more. So these cost a little bit less to play in than the scheduled events, but they have good rewards and they allow you to play at your own time. So I can join a friendly league and I can play 1 match tonight, 3 matches tomorrow, and the 5th match a week from now, so long as it's within the time frame for when the league will end. And so if you were to join a league, or attempt to join a league, it will actually tell you when the league ends. So this league ends in 3 weeks. And you can get details in terms of the payout structure and whatnot by clicking on Learn More. So limited is the same way in terms of queues, scheduled leagues. But limited, to join them, instead of needing just event tickets, so I don't know if we noted that, but in the constructed league, you know, for a competitive modern league, I think it's 12 event tickets. Yeah, you'd have to click more to see this, but if you go to join, it asks you which deck you want to play with, and then do you want to pay with event tickets or play points. And so when you join a limited league, oops, of course I'm clicking on the wrong stuff here. When you join a limited league or scheduled item, it's a little different because you also have to have packs. So you either can have 24 event tickets, or you can already have 4 Hour of Devastation boosters, 2 Amonkhet boosters, and 4 event tickets, or 240 play points. And so you have differing options for limited. The packs, that when you open them, the decks are, or the cards are all essentially digitally stamped, and so, you know, it's kind of just like paper in the fact that, you know, there's only as many of a single card out there. We're going to talk about, we'll use Hazoret as the example since it's all the rage right now. There's only as many Hazorets as have been opened within the system, and so the economy for the cards, when we looked at like Brainstorm and the cost of it earlier, you know, the cards cost on MTGO is different from what they cost in Standard because it's a different economy with a different supply and demand. But if you need to buy anything, so say you want to buy event tickets to compete in a modern league, you can come here, add them to your cart, and make a purchase. Same thing with booster packs, and there's all sorts of other things you can buy here that you'd like. So if I were to add this to cart, I could say I want to buy 50 of these. It's going to be $50, and then I can choose PayPal or whatever, proceed to checkout, and buy them that way. So I think that about hits everything. We talked about how to find friends, how to see your collection, how to trade, how to build the deck, how to set stops. Yeah, I think we've hit it all. Hopefully you enjoy. I'll try and rerun through this, and then again, as I said, I'll have links at the bottom marking out, you know, what time of the video that I started talking about certain key things, so that if you come back to watch it later, you will have the ability to get exactly to the point you're looking for. Hopefully you found it useful. If you liked, please give it a thumbs up. You know, there'll be an option to subscribe at the end here, and some links to other videos of mine that you can either watch or not watch it, etc. So anyway, have a good one, and thanks for watching, and enjoy playing Magic Online.